So what I will talk about is very much in the line with the previous presentations. With the power, I don't know. It's something that we often have a big problem with. Stand in front of a group of people, or even on our own, and I don't know. What does that fundamentally mean? It relates to something I'm sure everybody here can relate to. Whether it's you on your own, deciding for a pair of shoes. Should I take this pair of shoes? Should I take that pair of shoes? This dress or that dress, I'm sure every woman in this room can recognize that one. Is it the blue or the red one? Then we come home with the red one. Should I have taken the blue one? Did I get it right? When we are corporate leader, do I get the right decision? Is this the right product? Is this the right company to fuse with? I'm going to invest 100 billion euros in something. Do I get it right? It will put us to the top. Do I get it wrong? It will flatten us. What do I do? All the time we are in front of these decisions, and it's the one that gives the bellyache and the sleepless nights to any corporate leaders or any decision makers. And I will say these are 10 minutes? I think it jumped. No. Okay. These are the problems we stand on have in front of us all the time. No, but it's the time. Yes. I was given 50. Okay, yes. Time suddenly jumped like 7 minutes down, so I got a little worried here. So the thing is, every time we are in front of decisions, we are trying to get it right, and it's often very important for us to get it right, because we are born with a very excruciating fear of getting it wrong. What if? What if I get it wrong? How am I going to deal with this? How am I going to make it? The one thing we know, which we've been talking about in this world, that we all the time can make sure is absolutely certain, that's change. It's the one thing that we always know. We always try to get right, we try to control in order to get things our way. Out of that came a joke I'm sure some of you might know. You know which woman always knows where her husband is, right? The widow. Because where there's life, there's uncertainty. You'll never know. It's like that. The point is, the human being, we are driven by motivations. Whenever we are making a decision, whenever we are trying to be creative, because it's not just about decision making, it's about creativity, it's about ideas, now I also work with this. For the last 28 years, I've been running smaller or middle-sized organizations, and all the time been in front of decisions. Like anybody who would know this, as an artist, as a musician, I write music. I'm all the time in front of decisions. Should I make this? Should I do this? Which one of these two ones should I decide? Which will be the right one? How do we choose? Fundamentally, in order to choose, human beings, we are driven by motivations. And there are certain, I call them high-level essential motivators, and essential questions that somehow, when we boil everything down to the most basic and most important aspect, everything is driven by 4 questions. Who am I? Where do I come from? Where do I go? And especially, why am I here? As we know, human beings, we have to have a motivation. We have to have a why. We have to have a purpose. When the purpose disappears in our life, we wither away, and we might even die, which we see, for example, with old people. When one partner dies, very quickly after, often the other one dies because the partner that died had become the purpose of our life, and there's no more reason to be here. People are ready to live and die for that purpose. Essentially, most people are very unaware of these essential motivators, and since we don't have these answers to these questions, often we are very driven by the lower level essential motivators like our survival, our basic need, entertainment, avoid pain, obtain pleasure, power, and all of this. Most of them, to some degree or another, you could say, are secondary fulfillment compared to the other ones. Our motivators, in that sense, give impulse to how we get our direction in life, our creativity, our decision, our leadership, all of that, it forms our lives in this way. So how do we get it right? The right decision, right direction, inspiration, timing, values, etc. These ones are not full list. It's just some suggestions that always drive the human beings, whether we are very aware of it or not. The problem in this is that mostly for this, we use the mind. The discursive linear mind, though we know that men and women, we use it very differently, but in generally, this is what we do, and that is where the agony lies in all of this. Because, as we know, the mind is the mad monkey. How many here control their mind perfectly? Can you make it stop when you want? Can you make it go when you want? Can you make the mind create the idea you need when you want? You notice, you need an idea and you push, and it doesn't come. When does your idea come? When you start thinking about something else, right? Suddenly it comes. I get an idea. I don't make an idea. I get an idea. And the mind cannot do that because the mind is always jumping between the past and the future. It's never in the moment, not based on essence, but on interpretation, meaning it's always based on your past experiences. What if your past experiences are wrong or not harmonious? Then that is what drives your life. In a university here in Lisbon, Isaac, there is a sentence on the wall that you can never base future decisions on the past because the future essentially doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the past. Because the future is always new. So how to relate with what's always new? Because the mind makes whatever is new in front of always what it knows already, meaning it selects out anything new. So the open mind has fundamentally very little to do with the regular mind because the mind is a survivor. How does it survive? The mind survives by preserving the status quo, meaning blocking out new things, by stopping evolution. Fundamentally, that's the function of the mind, a basic function of the mind. Sometimes we can't even decide what clothes to wear, right? I thought they were sweet. Probably they didn't need. The mind always fluctuates, very easy to control, very easily tricked. There's whole industries like the advertisement industry that's just based on how to trick your mind to buy things you don't need, as it was said, with money that you don't have. It's very smart, and it works very, very well. There are people like Darren Brown and others that have a whole life just tricking people's minds because it's very easily tricked, because it's not under our control. The problem with the constant jumping between the past and the future, constantly relating with the mind, is that fundamentally we are fear-based. Our decisions become fear-based, fear of making wrong decision, not being loved, rejected, not being okay, not being the best, losing, fear, pain. All of that drives us as a major motivator. When we are motivated by that, we are constantly reactive. Reactive means that we always react according to patterns. When we are reactive, we react according to a pattern, which means that our so-called free choice is as free as the tennis ball that just got hit by the tennis player and is proud how it's flying through the air. Look at me go. Oh yeah, great decision. Until, now I'm going back again. Look at me. That is how we are when we are reactive. That is why Gurdjieff called us robotrons, because there's fundamentally almost no free will and free choice. Because we always choose according to a pre-program when we are fear-based, when we are reactive. So how do we change this one? Because what we know with fear, what we are afraid of will happen. So how do we avoid this one here? How do we get rid of the what-if bug? First of all, we must redefine the tool, because the linear mind is linear thinking in a linear world. The point is that the future of the world doesn't move in linear ways. We call it often the Newtonian mindset. Only the mind, the experience, apparently is linear because we focus in a linear way through linear conclusions. That is why we will fundamentally often not get it wrong. So if not the mind, then what? It all starts from the power of I don't know. Because when we are honest, which is the conclusion I made with my clients, is this incredible excruciating fear that, as the client said, but I have to know. If I don't know, I'm a failure. But we cannot know always. Sometimes things take time to ripen. It has a process. Life is a process. The one thing in the end of the process, which was pointed out before, that we always get perfectly right, all of us, is death. We all perfectly die. Anything before that could be a failure, but at least we die perfectly. That's a comfort. Also, we started our life as a winner, right? 1 out of 200 million, I mean, that's a winner, isn't it? Truly, I mean, think about it. 200 million, and I'm the one who came out. So the point is to have the courage to stay in the power of I don't know. When you dare accept the fact that in this moment you don't have to know, you cannot know, and you're comfortable with it. That this moment, which you will recognize, is the moment where you actually usually get your ideas, just not aware maybe. But that's the point when you stop trying to know. When you can control this force of going into the now, because the mind will take over very fast. When you go into the power of I don't know, you suddenly land in the now. You're not in your way anywhere. You don't have to obtain a specific result, and you're comfortable with it. It's okay. And whether you are a business leader, you're a shopkeeper, you're a private person choosing a pair of shoes, you stay in front of them, you don't know, and you don't have to. And it's okay. You give time to the process. Recently, I had to buy a TV, and it took me 3 months to get it. One day, just recently, I was in front of the right one. There it is. I buy it on the spot. Until then, I don't know. To have this, to be comfortable with starting from this void, which we call to start in a non-linearity, in a quantum mindset, where everything starts interconnecting in a multidimensional room within your space of consciousness, because it's no longer linear. It's no longer focused on a result happening in an unknown future. When you can have the courage to do that and be comfortable with this, anything is possible. All it requires is the appropriate training and the courage to actually do it. Then you start doing, like Ricardo talked about earlier, you don't think, because everything in your mind will tell you, no, don't go there, it's dangerous, you feel you should go there, but it's not. Think about how many of you, even during this day, might have made a decision where you thought afterwards, I knew I should have decided the other one. How do you know? Because in this field of what I call the power of I don't know, in this presence, there's a big gamut of what some people call intuitions, being in the now, and a few other things, which is we don't have time to go into now, lies a field from where you always know. Because it's already there. Because there is nowhere to go. Because we live in a world that is with an apparently linear causality. Because sometimes it looks apparently linear, and with an apparently non-linear causality, which we often refer to the quantum field or the quantum mind, which is where everything interconnects in a totally non-linear way. And it's in that field the genius is born. It's in that field you can see what nobody else can see. That is so obvious because everything is hidden in plain sight. Everything is already there. You just need to see it. As I put here, all is based in infinity till we're in the infinity, because that's the scary part with the power I don't know. That is, you have an infinity of choices in front of you. And that's scary for most. That's why we try to boil everything down into what we know already. But when you have an infinity of choices in front of you, at some point when you make a choice, everything collapses into one singular choice. And that's equally scary for us. But it makes us feel comfortable. And eventually we have to do it. So, in that way, we can say the tool for this is totally different. It's related with the supramental field. It's related with the essence of who you are. And therefore, it must be based in integrated values, integrated decisions, integrated leadership, and integrated creativity, meaning that it comes from and leads to and from your essence. If it leads from anything like that, you are still reactive and driven by habit. As the moment we can go into this field, we are driven by proactivity, and in that way, we will get it right every time. Even if the decision leads to a failure, that failure might be necessary for our next choice. I'm sure everybody in this room can agree with me, where you learned the most was not where you succeeded, but often where you failed and where we learned through maybe the pain of a failure that leads to an even greater success, and sometimes that's necessary. And in order to reach true success, you have to accept the possibility of failure. Just like with a relationship, in order to really have a totally blossoming relationship, you have to be ready to lose it. Otherwise, you kill it. The same thing with your choices. So, thank you very much.